Hello all, thank you for coming out. My name is Mark Perry, I'm with HOK, so I'm one of the design technology specialists over there. So I know some of you guys, familiar faces, and some are new friends. So today we have a couple of guest speakers, and so before I get into that, we are the SFCDI. So if you can see the screen, awesome. So we do have a blog, sfcdi.org, the email. You can follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook as well. So for the announcements, like I mentioned, this is the monthly announcement, so you can follow us there. If we do have attendees that are on the line, you can write your questions in the chat panel. So first announcement, there is a hackathon that Thornton Tomasetti is presenting, and so that'll be October 17th through the 20th, and that's in New York City. So if you have any questions about that information, just Google it, and they have a lot of information online about that. We do have a SFCDI meetup that's at AU. If anyone here is going to AU, then try to make it a point to come take a look. So join the conversation. We also have the profit and nonprofit panel that's at 10:30 to 11:30 as well. So for our presentations, for our presenters, first we're going to have John Barkwell, who is with BIMTrack. I'm personally a big fan of BIMTrack. We're using it for a couple projects right now at HOK. And I will let him introduce himself and go from there. So, John?
For doing that, I'll just do a quick little introduction. We'll get the screen on. So my name is John Barkwell with BIMTrack. I'm the director of our professional services team and business development in the U.S. Little backstory on my role. I've been with the company for coming up on 2 years in this particular role with BIMTrack. Prior to that, I was at ACADIA for about 4 years, was a construction management solution that was acquired by Oracle about 2 years ago and kind of rolled into their platform. And then prior to that, I was at Autodesk for 8 years. I was part of the Revit acquisition team and worked a lot with the Autodesk strategic accounts on the implementation of Revit, helping people move from their traditional CAD-based workflows over to BIM and their model-based workflows. A little bit about BIMTrack as a company. BIMTrack started as a BIM consultancy about 7 years ago, doing coordination work for organizations that did not have the expertise in-house. And the idea was, when a lot of the projects that we were working on, particularly international projects, where we were in the Middle East and working with teams in Europe and the US and American EPCs, managing that whole communication process was very difficult through emails and screenshots and spreadsheets.
Okay, I think we should be good.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry, thanks, John.
No worries. And so that was really the emphasis around the idea of BIMTrack, was a cloud-based solution that would connect into all the tools that you use. So if you're a Revit person or an AutoCAD or Civil 3D, depending on the tool in the toolbox that you use, really depends on the trade or discipline that you're involved with. BIMTrack is agnostic to any one platform, yet connects to any tool. And so my topic today is just to give you a little bit of better understanding what BIMTrack is, but related to kind of computational design. What I'm going to talk about is high level about BIMTrack from an issue coordination, but what I'm going to focus on is how we can use Dynamo to sync information from Revit and connect it to a Power BI dashboard. Okay, so think about, we always talk about the I in BIM, right, the information. BIMTrack allows you to extract and sync that information from, say, your Revit application, your AutoCAD application, into like a Power BI interface. So the idea with BIMTrack as I mentioned, is it allows you to kind of connect these tools from Navisworks to Revit to AutoCAD. It's agnostic to any one platform. Tekla, it doesn't matter what the tool in the toolbox that you're using. Allows you to manage that communication. And the interesting thing is that your model management workflow, so if you're using BIM 360, SharePoint, ProjectWise, your drawing or model document management system, that process works fluidly with BIMTrack. BIMTrack is issue management. So I always say, model management and issue management working together is a perfect workflow. And a lot of the big GCs and architectural firms are using BIMTrack just in that idea. And so I talk about metrics and kind of analytics. One of the things I'll show you with BIMTrack is that all the information, the communication that you're having has attributes to it. Things like what's the phase of and who's it assigned to, what zone of the issue. And I'll show you an example here of how we can create zones within, say, Revit and sync that out to kind of a Power BI with issues. So whenever you create an issue, you assign it to an individual, you assign that metadata, the due date. The mantra of BIMTrack is really transparency, visibility, and accountability. And what I mean by that is being able to see what trades are working on. Traditionally, though, the pain that BIMTrack is kind of solving is that that idea where you can't see what your subs are working on or consultants are working on right until that next meeting. With BIMTrack, it's connected into that tool, and you can see exactly the stage that people are at with the issues that they're working on. Okay, so you can track performance and see all those metrics, and you can drill down deeper and deeper into the information. So I could say, I want to see everything that's assigned to the mechanical team based on this zone, based on these individuals, and all the ones that are overdue that the team should be working on, right? BIMTrack sends an email notification to that user of when the issue is supposed to be completed. And if they don't get it done by that due date that you've assigned, BIMTrack will automatically send an email notification reminder to that person, reminding them, hey, you've got 10 items that are due before tomorrow's coordination meeting. Okay. We also have, part of BIMTrack, as I mentioned, it's a cloud-based solution with the plugins, but we have the web-based viewer to be able to view actual drawings and models in a web browser. So think about project managers or extended stakeholders that don't have Revit, AutoCAD, Navis available to them. You can actually share at key milestones, at certain design milestones, that information. You can also publish all of your Revit sheets and all of your models. And the interesting thing is you can schedule that. So you can say at midnight tonight, I wanted to load all of my models from BIM 360, publish all 200 sheets, all 20 models, and they're published as industry foundation classes, the IFC models, and the actual 2D sheets are published as PDFs. BIMTrack is part of the Building Smart International Alliance, so we subscribe to kind of open BIM and open standards. Everything on BIMTrack is a open file format, including all the communication between you and your consultants and teammates that you're working with is the building collaboration format, the BCF file format, which is basically just an open XML schema for communication. Okay, but the cool thing about this is when you publish those sheets at, say, midnight or 2 o'clock in the morning, it will automatically overlay the 2D sheet on top of the 3D model. We pick up the elevation value. In Revit, you have to specify the elevation of that sheet. We automatically stitch it through the model in 3D. And the nice thing about that, particularly in design, with models, you don't get annotations, room numbers, dimension marks, things like that within a 3D model. Now with BIMTrack, through a browser, you get all of the annotations as it relates to the actual model. So it's a great tool to kind of use to have a conversation, with your team that don't quite understand 3D or aren't sure where they're at. Having that 2D sheet superimposed on top of that is a pretty cool thing. So as I mentioned before, add-ins, so any AutoCAD-based application platform, so Plant 3D, Civil 3D, HydroCAD, anything that consultants might be using, Revit, Tekla, Navisworks, the list goes on. So the add-ins, the idea of the add-ins allows you to work in context, as we call it, inside the tool. So if you're an architect using Revit and you're in Revit 14 hours a day, working through your work, you basically have a BIMTrack dialog box open that allows you to work on the issues that are assigned to you. And the cool thing is view and plan, view and model navigates you through. So you can imagine inside this building, you can have save views that will take that user right to where that issue is or that clash is within the model where they need to work on, make the design change, save to central, relinquish the typical process, put their notes in and update. The integrations, things like Procore or Power BI that I'm going to talk about today, allow you to connect to those solutions. So we have an open API that I'm going to be showing you today that allows you to extract or sync information to and from BIMTrack, to and from Revit. Okay. And so related to what we're talking about today is Dynamo and BIMTrack. So the interesting thing about Dynamo, and I'm no Dynamo expert, so for those of you in the room, once you kind of get into this, you'll kind of see the power of it, but it's an open API that will allow you to connect. So my colleague who's kind of authored the whole API and works with our development team recorded a little video that I'm going to walk you through kind of that process. But the cool thing here is that you can publish information, automatically schedule using Dynamo to extract information in and out of Revit. You can pull properties information, you can automatically back up information from BIMTrack, IFCs, drawings to your repository, BIM 360. It basically just exposes the back end of BIMTrack that allows you to create your own integrations. Okay, and so I'll show you a quick little sample of kind of a Power BI dashboard to give you an idea of the flexibility and the power of what you can do here. And so the example is with a Power BI dashboard, a lot of what our customers are doing is they're creating these dashboards. You think about your executive management who knows nothing about Revit or any tools, but you want to create basically an executive overview dashboard of the performance or health of your projects. So over here on the left, I have all of my projects listed. And you can see here the remaining issues per project that are open, right? Remaining issues by priority and discipline. Right? Remember what I said about transparency and accountability? Traditionally, you've not had this level of visibility into a project until that next coordination meeting. When you get the team together and it's like, surprise, the things that I assigned them last week in the meeting, they didn't get done. Yet I'm on a whole new phase or a whole new zone of the project. The idea of BIMTrack is being able to see the progress of the project. And I've seen this firsthand, on projects with teams that I've worked with from a psychological point of view. No one wants to be that one consultant that has the most overdue issues that are assigned to them, right? That because they know executives and project managers can see that. And just from a psychological, they tend to get things done because they know they can't hide behind it, right? And at the end of the day, when you have people with that type of behavior, projects run a lot smoother. Here's another example of basically a floor plan, right? So this is a Power BI interface, right, with hotspots over the floor plan. I can click on the lobby, the parking structure, and interior, and all of these charts will dynamically update from the Power BI, reading real time, literally up to that second inside of the BIMTrack database. We can also look at like a schedule up here in the upper left-hand corner where it says BIM1. Those are sliders. So I can basically grab dates and scroll through and see how the team was performing, a few months ago up to the current time and point. Another example here is something like an isometric view, right? So an isometric view is sectioned through with hotspots over the interior lobby. And here are all of the issues, the interior lobby and parking structure, who they're assigned to, what the due date is, and what team they're involved with, right? So this is all real-time data reporting, again, from BIMTrack into a Power BI interface, all right? And so, as I mentioned, my colleague has created specifically for you a little example here, and I'm going to kind of walk through it, and we'll share this with you, and also I've got his email address for those that want to take a look at how this is put together. He's doing this presentation for the Built Europe that's coming up soon. But let me go ahead and play this. And so what he's done here is he's created basically a Revit plan And inside of that plan, he's created issues in all of these rooms based on zones and room numbers, right? And so you can see here inside of Revit, the floor plan, and this is the BIMTrack dialog box running inside of Revit with the issues that are assigned to individuals. The colors kind of indicate it's a configurable option that you can say, you can set the colors based on priority. So all the things that are red are critical, all the things that are yellow are high, and so on. You can also set that up based on discipline. I want all my architectural to be red and all my structural to be yellow. Completely up to you. It's a visual aid indicator to see what issues that you're working on. But the idea here is that we've created a project inside of Revit, we've set up some zones and rooms, and we've created issues in each one of those. Okay. Go ahead and play this through. And so again, I'm going to kind of talk you through this. So we want to identify the issues. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to use Dynamo to connect into Revit to extract that information out with the purpose of feeding that and syncing it to a Power BI dashboard. So basically he's creating the Dynamo script here to connect to the levels. Going to jump over into Power BI, and we actually have a little, I'll back that up right here. We actually have a Power BI toolkit. So for those of you that have interest in doing this, there's actually a Power BI template that we've created. The API is open and freely available to BIMTrack. So for those of you that want to play with this, I'll show you how to get access to this. But there is a little how-to step here to do this as well. So now we're inside of BIMTrack, and basically we're going to do a token request to have access to the API. So you grab that, feed that information back into Power BI. Okay. And so here's the oops, let's kind of pause there. Okay, hit the forward button. So here's the API, and so basically all the calls. So you have access to all of the hubs, issues, and projects. So you can see here all the kind of the call sets. Okay. And then we told him to try and make this 2 minutes, so he fast forwarded through here. So it's going to go really quick, and I'll kind of just mention. Basically, he's going through the levels and rooms to be able to call that, feed that into Power BI, and fast forwarding through it here. Okay. So back to Power BI, basically creating the layout of this. Most of the work with creating the Power BI dashboard is not really the connection. The connection is actually pretty easy. It's how do you want the screen to lay out? Like I was showing you before with those floor plans and hotspots and things like that. It's usually conversations within your team of how you want that to look that takes the most time. The connection of this and the layout of it is pretty simple. But here, basically, there's the Revit floor plan. He's brought in a vector screenshot of that inside of Power BI. And he's creating basically all the connections here between the issues. Okay, and we'll make this presentation available kind of after this. So if you want to kind of go back through this, pause this and kind of go through these steps. And that's basically it. I think that was kind of the end there, right? He was just, yeah, doing the connection there. So the idea there is basically just using Dynamo to kind of automate that process to be able to extract it and also sync it from BIMTrack back into Revit. That's the power of Dynamo. But the example here with Power BI is creating kind of that dashboard that you can share that information out with folks that don't normally have access to that data. And so that's pretty much it. Just wanted a quick little overview of that. My contact information is here. Jean-Marc Coffin is the API kind of developer behind this, and I've included his contact here. I know he's involved with some of the folks with this group, with some communication with them. He's on the forums as well. Feel free to kind of reach out to him. He's the expert on this, so if you have any more technical detailed questions, feel free to reach out to him, or you can contact me and we can set up a call with one of our developers to kind of help out. But again, this is an open API and freely available to allow folks to have access to it. Okay, any questions, or should we just kind of keep moving along? Yep.
We can keep going on.
Yep.
Let's see if there's any questions online. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah. If you, is it an Autodesk program?
It's not. It's a no. We're a separate company, okay. But we integrate with all the Autodesk tools. Okay. So we're part of the ADN.
Vectorworks?
There's not a plugin for Vectorworks to work inside of Vectorworks, but you can work with Vectorworks through assigned issues. It just doesn't have that link that takes you directly inside of the tool like Vectorworks.
Will it be developed eventually?
It will be, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, is it similar to ProjectWise in terms of the participants being able to manipulate, per se, the model when you're in?
No.
No. It's just viewing and providing information, but not interaction, per se.
We're basically managing the communication of said models and tools that you're working at. So if you're using ProjectWise or BIM 360, like most of our customers, for their model management and drawing management, that process stays the same. We're just managing that communication between you and I on a project, as opposed to email and screenshots and PDFs. Yeah.
And what is the approximate cost of the software?
It's
service.
Yeah, it's basically a licensing fee on a number of users. It's literally as cheap as $20 a month per user. We've made it ridiculously inexpensive, so that cost, it's really about adoption.
So how would you access that information? How would you hire the service?
Well, you can go to BIMTrack.co, and all the information is there on the pricing subscription. You can do a monthly subscription. Try it out. We have a free trial, by the way, full version of the software, no time limit. The only limitation is 50 active issues. So if you want to try it out and kind of work with the plugins inside of Revit and Navis with your colleagues back at the office, you can totally do that, and it's completely free. Okay. All right.
I got a quick one.
Yeah.
You guys post the template Power BI file with the API connection. Are you guys thinking of doing something similar with the Dynamo file that helps make the API connection for users?
Yes, and if you talk with Jean-Marc, he will help you out with that.
Okay, thank you.
All righty.
Okay, we can all give John a hand.
Right, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
All righty. I'll pass it back over to
It
you.
should be good to go. Okay. Hello, Wassim.
Hello.
Hi. Okay. Okay, can we all see? Awesome. Okay, so our next presenter today is Dr. Wassim Jabi. I could go on and on about his accolades. Currently a professor at the Welsh School of Architecture. He's as an author. as well as a lot of other things. I'll allow him to present or give you information about himself if he chooses to. So he is with Topologic, and as you can see on the screen here, his presentation is on spatiality, awareness, and abstraction in architectural and engineering modeling. So they're doing a lot of really interesting things with Dynamo and using Refinery and things like that. So Wassim, if you are ready, I'll let you take it away.
Great, thank you. Thanks for the invitation, guys, and thank you for attending. And can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
Is that okay? Good. Okay.
Right. So first of all, let me just introduce the team. Topologic is a result of a 3-year research project. In a way, it's kind of a really nice contrast with BIMTrack, because it seems BIMTrack is towards the end where it's tracking BIM throughout when you have BIM models. Topologic is at the very, very start, almost pre-BIM. And it's a project that myself and Robert H., which I assume many people know, but if not, just to let you know, of course, Robert H. is considered the grandfather of design script, which is the language that is embedded inside Dynamo. And he worked first at Bentley on generative components, and then moved to Autodesk and invented with a team design script that was working with AutoCAD at that point. And then at a certain point, he left Autodesk and went to the Bartlett to become a visiting professor. And that's when design script was implemented in Dynamo. And I'm working with Simon Lennon, a colleague of mine at the Welsh School of Architecture, and we have 2 research associates, Katerina and Nicholas, who is a computer scientist. I won't bore you. You can see the text on there, but basically, just to tell you a little bit about myself, my Ph.D. is from the University of Michigan. I did my master's and my Ph.D. there. When I was at NJIT, I received an NSF grant to look at creativity in design and computation. I was president of ACADIA, the Association for Computer-Aided Design and Architecture. And I have a book called Parametric Design for Architecture that was published, I think, in 2013 now. So it's due for an update. And as I said, we are working on a £300,000, so it's about $450,000, a 3-year grant to enhance the representation of space through non-manifold topology, and I'll tell you all about that. And that resulted in a freely available software development kit called Topologic. So what is Topologic, and why do we care about Topologic? Simply because of these 3 areas. We are addressing the idea of dealing with space rather than building fabric, the idea of awareness, making sure that objects, entities in a BIM environment are aware of their surroundings, aware of other entities, and I'll explain that in a bit more detail. And then the idea of abstraction, that we believe that the BIM field in general is suffering from a lot of complexity and a lot of detailed information that is always required of us. And we don't have the space and the time to breathe and think in an abstract way. So Topologic allows you to deal with these 3 issues. So when we're talking about spatiality, obviously on the left, or my left, I guess, BIM is fantastic at that stuff, at kind of aggregating all this building fabric that is needed. But what is lost for us architects, especially in the early phases of design, is the idea of space. How do you model and represent and think about space? And in a way, architecture at the end, yes, it's going to be made out of this physical stuff, but it's really about the space that is created, that is left over. And somehow that's missing in BIM systems. The other thing is the idea of awareness, in the sense that if on the left is my favorite system, actually, that I've always used and learned early on, which is 3D Studio Max. Now in 3D Studio Max, you can make this simple assembly of cubes, and you can stack them on top of each other. But if you want to ask a cube, imagine this cube has kind of ability to answer question and say, what is next to you? What's to your left, what's above you, what's below you? It doesn't know. It cannot answer that question. There's nothing built in that will allow you to do that. So you will have to do ad hoc things. like shooting rays and finding intersections, or looking at the display list and positions and trying to answer that in an ad hoc way. Topologic, which you see on the right, allows you to do that. So in this case, we are looking at a cell complex, like a complex of cells, but it's really one entity. We pick a certain cell in it, which is highlighted in yellow, and then we ask that cell to give us its adjacent cells. And we highlight those in a translucent red. So it says this yellow cell will say, I have one on my left, I have one on my right, one above me, one below me, and I'm connected to this kind of vertical central core that I share faces with. So cell.adjacent cell. The other idea is the idea of abstraction. And this is a slide from Professor Gottfried Augenbrock from Georgia Tech, who came and gave us a talk in Cardiff. And he showed that slide, which really caught my eye. And he was saying a lot of people are building these design models. These are our BIM models that are very, very complex. And immediately they are going or trying to go to computational models, like, for example, GBXML. And from that, we're trying to get output aggregate without first going through a mathematical abstraction, without a formalism. And this is basically what Topologic is about. It's a mathematical abstraction. It allows you to think in a very simple but rigorous way, create a mathematical formalism, which is non-manifold topology, and I'll explain that. And from that, you can use it as a skeleton to build a BIM model and to build computational models like GBXML files. And from that, you can get your output aggregation. So what we want to do is flip the arrow. Say, we don't want to go from BIM to Topologic. We want you to go from Topologic to BIM. But I fully understand that many people have BIM models and they would like to move them to Topologic. And we have some tools to do that. And I'll show the work that we've been doing with Puro Happel in particular on that. The other main idea in Topologic is that if you are aggregating space, you can get into trouble if surfaces do not meet, and you can get duplicate vertices. Sorry, I'm getting maybe if the sound can be just lowered just a little bit. So if you aggregate space, you're gonna get these kind of duplicate vertices when you should be doing only one vertex. So Topologic uses the idea of division. So you take an overall space and you slice it with planes to create your zones, to create subspaces. Now, so what is manifold geometry and non-manifold geometry? Or actually, I should use the word manifold topology and non-manifold topology. But I'm going to keep it simple. It's a very sophisticated mathematical concept, but I'm not going to go into that. Basically, a two-manifold is when a point on a surface divides the world into two sets: the inside solid of the torus and the outside void, the outside world, the outside void of the world. In that case, every point on that surface is separated between these two manifolds. So it's called a two-manifold. Non-manifold topology is when that condition does not hold true. For example, if you look at the entity on the right side, those two cells, points on the dividing surface inside that cell divide the world into the two interiors and maybe the exterior as well, if you are on the edge. So that could be a three-manifold condition. So Topologic does not shy away from these conditions, which are usually considered errors in other traditional CAD systems, where you have they call it non-manifold. You need to get rid of it, but in fact, Topologic takes advantage of that, model space that way. So you can have edges that are shared by more than two faces. You can have vertices that are shared by more than two edges. Let's say in terms of a polygon. So what we propose to the labor home is that we are going to use non-manifold topology in four main areas: energy analysis, structural analysis, digital fabrication, and spatial reasoning. And I'll go a little bit faster. Mainly, we want to use a common topology model that is the main model that you are working on as a designer. And from that, you are deriving all these analytical models that are like thermal, structural, or fabrication planning. So we invented after 3 years well, it's not really a piece of software. It's more it's a software development kit. It's really an API. It's a very large open API, but we have implemented it in several pieces of software so far. And you can download it for free. It's available for free forever, kind of, in a way. So it is open, it's multi-platform, and it's free. It works with Revit and Dynamo alone, or Dynamo for Revit. It works with Grasshopper and Rhino. It works with Bureau Happel's BOM. It's called BHOM, Buildings Habitats Object Model. If you want to take a look at it, it's BOM.xyz. That also is a Grasshopper type of system. And we have a version that is a .NET. So if you are a developer and you want to implement it, let's say, for Maya or Unity or 3ds Max, there is a .NET version that you can use to write your own software on top of it. So what does it do? It allows you to build this topologic model, and from that you can derive a building fabric model, let's say, or an energy analysis model, or a structural analysis model, or even a spatial reasoning model through dual graph, through graph theory. So as I said, you can ask a cell for its adjacencies. You can give it 2 cells and say, what surfaces do you share? And it says, I have this trapezoid in between, or what edges you share, or what vertices you share. And it has all that spatial topological queries are available in Dynamo. You can just ask questions and it will give you the answer. It can also do graphs or dual graphs. So you can give it this kind of cell complex of a building and you say, give me the dual graph, which is, as a simple way, you can connect, let's say, the centroids of all the spaces to each other. And then you can say, okay, find me the shortest path from the ground floor all the way up to the 3rd floor or 4th floor, and it will find the shortest path through it. You can also assign costs. Like, for example, I'm working with an MEP engineer who was saying he would like ducting to go through a set of spaces and not other spaces. He wanted it to be very expensive to go through, let's say, an office or a conference room, because that's very, it's intrusive. So you can assign a cost for going through certain spaces, and that's all done through custom dictionaries. So we did a workshop recently at the ACADIA conference in Porto, and this is Hannah Ju who attended the workshop. And this is just a simple little toy thing, a little animation in Dynamo where she built this cell complex. This is one entity made out of these cells, and there are apertures that she can go through. And she is finding the shortest path from every room to every other room, going through the corridors or going through the central space. In this one, we were exercising the idea of adding custom dictionaries. So in Dynamo, any entity in Topologic can have content and can have a custom dictionary with any kind of key. So you can put manufacturer, cost, type, etc. So in this case, we put in the vertices, like these centroids of all these cells, the kind of space, like retail, offices, or residential. And then we built a cell complex, and then we matched the vertices to the new centroids, and we said color the cell complex based on the custom dictionary word that you see. So if it sees the word commercial, it would put it in blue. If it's offices, it puts it in yellow, and if it's residential, it puts it in red. So just the idea that custom dictionaries survive geometric operations. This animation, it might look simple, but this is really what you're looking at is one object. This is a cell complex in which the elements in that cell complex are very aware of the situation they find themselves in. So if a face is an exterior face, it's yellow. If it is an interior face that divides 2 smaller spaces, like 2 offices, it's blue. And if it is a face that divides a smaller space with a big space, like this big cube that's going around and changing size, it's red. So all of that is algorithmically computed at the same time. So for example, if you are doing optioneering, if you're trying to understand, where to put this kind of central space, at every point in this animation, you can ask it, how many yellow panels do I need, how many blue panels, and how many red panels? And you can, of course, do all sorts of logic based on that. You can put large windows in between spaces. The exterior wall could be a different construction, etc. But the idea is that automatically, in Topologic, entities know the situation that they are in, and you can ask those types of questions. We also connected Topologic to OpenStudio and Energy Plus, and you can do energy analysis now in Dynamo for the first time. I believe it's the first time, at least fully, for free, completely for free. You don't need green building studio or anything else or pay for anybody. You can just simply build a cell complex, divide it, and like in this case, we are looking for the time where it's not comfortable, whether it's summer or winter clothes, so thermal comfort basically in a tower of some sort. And it's not about export and import of files. It basically is, we have something called topologic energy. Once you hook it all up, it will launch Energy Plus in the background. It will give you all the results, and you can color code your spaces based on the results that you are getting in. And it's all done within the Dynamo environment. We also connected it to Refinery, as was mentioned before. So in this case, we're trying to minimize the cooling loads as well as maximize the glazing area on a setup, on a parametric setup, where you have like these kind of 4 building bars, and they are moving against each other. And you can even erase one of them. That's why you sometimes see 3 bars. But they slide against each other, and you are trying to increase this glazing area and minimize the cooling load, and you can plug this stuff and you can do optimization that way. So it's definitely fully working with Refinery. And we are recently linking it to fire simulation. So you can take a cell complex with the apertures and the windows and a source of fire, and you can do a very accurate fire propagation. We have also connected it to machine learning, which is part of AI, called reinforcement learning. So in this case, we are seeing an agent, which is this yellow cone, trying to escape a building, trying to find the fire egress, which are these green spheres, before the fire spreads. And the fire is spreading not through some kind of abstract model. It's the data for the fire is coming from the fire simulation. So we create a fire propagation simulation first in FDS, and we feed that back into Dynamo, and then we ask this agent to try to find the exit and learn how to find the exit. And obviously, if it finds it quicker, that means you have a good design. If it takes too long to find it, maybe you can improve the design, and we can optimize on that. So this is just a screenshot. We brought that sample architectural project from Revit. You probably recognize the building, turned it into a cell complex, lit a fire on the 2nd floor. We put some green balls, some green spheres for it to find. And after a while, after a few iterations, it ducks down to the ground floor. You see those blue, the dark blue ones are the path, basically. It learns that it needs to go straight down and try to find the exit before the fire engulfs it. I just wanted to show this LinkedIn post from Michael Degunsiak from Bureau Happold, which we're working with very closely. And they had a Revit to GBXML workflow. And this is Bureau Happold, so they know what they're doing. And for a long, long time, that workflow for them was producing invalid panels. In the latest test that they did, out of like 400 panels, I think, or something, 77 panels were invalid. And once they incorporated Topologic, they got 0 invalid panels. And they were able to create GBXML, and the simulation ran much, much faster. So we're really very happy about the impact we're creating on Bureau Happold there. We're working very closely with them. They're one of our partners on this. Thank you, guys. And as I said, this is just really the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more to Topologic. So if you're interested, just go and download it. It's free. You can use it forever. You can deploy it in your company. And if you have any questions, it's jabi@cardiff.ac.uk or info@topologic.com. Thanks again.